Alright, so lately I've seen a growing trend regarding pixel gun content, which is where people just talk about how much they hate the game and how much it sucks now. And I don't mean to be pessimistic, but they're not wrong. However, after seeing a bunch of these videos, I actually found myself disagreeing with a lot of your takes, because I don't think these people have been nearly as involved with the game or its community for as long as you and I. Like, let me tell you, man, these creators, they haven't been in the goddamn trenches of competitive pool party. They haven't survived and clenched onto their barely breathing accounts after what feels like 100 ban waves. They haven't witnessed the gradual downfall of this game and its player base from 2013 all the way up to 2024, and that is exactly what I'm here to talk about today. Starting off with the new player experience. A very big issue in this game is that as a new player, you're gonna have an awful time playing this game due to the fact that it is almost impossible to progress through the game without having a lot of pre-existing knowledge, skill, and of course, money. Like, getting into Pixagon is even harder than getting into fucking One Piece. Except instead of having to watch 1,000 episodes, you have to spend a couple $1,000 and hours of your time in order to play the game at the same level you would 10 fucking years ago. Because 10 years ago, the progression in this game was still very effective and fun. Like, you simply had to grind coins, level up, strategically decide which weapon you were gonna buy or upgrade, and then compete against slightly better players than last time. And you wanna know what the crazy part is? It is that each and every single one of these weapons were completely viable and had their own pros and cons at the time. Whereas now, despite there being thousands of more weapons into the game, only a handful of them actually feel viable. And on top of that, the progression system in this game is absolutely dog shit now, to the point that you literally cannot obtain what I would honestly consider to be essential accessories and weapons without either grinding a very specific time limited event or modding them into your fucking account. I'm talking about shit like the burning tiara, the pumpkin mask, Cyber Santa boots, the cookie pad, all of which I would honestly consider to be essential if you want to have a good time in this game. Like, the game is no longer pay to win. Hell, it's not even pay to play. Pixagon has become the very first game that I would consider to be hack to play. Truly an innovator within an already decaying industry. And I mean, speaking of hacking, another thing that's been going on for the past few months is that I hear a lot of players, and especially content creators, complain about the amount of hackers that the game has generated after the Steam release. Like, here, I'll pull up an example real quick.
It was really hard to ban them because unless players got really salty like me and reported them whenever they noticed that they were like using suspicious weapons, which a lot of players don't, it's really hard to just report these players.
And like, I know you guys are gonna expect me to agree with this shit, because in any other game, hackers are extremely destructive. But honestly, if you're out here reporting people for using quote-unquote suspicious weapons, you are a fucking bitch. No, like genuinely, if I see some of you people modding in a few accessories or weapons, I will personally pat you on the fucking back, because it makes the game somewhat playable due to how bad the microtransactions have gotten. And if you somehow still don't believe me, then go ahead and make a new account right now and show me. Please show me how you're gonna obtain a viable loadout without either quitting your job or taking out a fucking loan for QuWack games. In fact, speaking of loans, let's go ahead and do the math real quick. Alright, so after doing some community research, I've made the discovery that getting one module to the max is gonna cost you about 8,000 coins, okay? Now, considering that there's about 50 modules in the game, we'll multiply that by 50, and we're gonna end up with a staggering 400,000 coins. Okay, yeah, no, go ahead and report players for deciding not to go into generational depth to play their childhood video game. Good job, man. You're really doing the community a service with this one. And I mean, it doesn't mean that I condone hackers, okay? In fact, if you're using silent aim or any form of game-breaking cheats, then I genuinely hope you step on a Lego brick and then proceed to get brutally beaten to death by your alcoholic stepfather. Anyways, now that we've officially established that this game's ability to pull in new players is rivaled only by a fat black pedophile's ability to acquire a cupcake, it is time to talk about the game's inability to keep old players, or OGs interested in the game. Because as you might have already noticed, not only are a lot of content creators quitting their channels, but the player base is statistically dwindling to the point that the developers had to reinstate crossplay after they attempted to remove it for a day due to very obvious balancing issues. Never mind. I just discovered that was likely just a bug due to update mismatch. But while we're on the topic anyways, let's talk about the big issue at hand that is crossplay. And I'm honestly quite a hypocrite for saying this, as I'm literally playing the Steam version of Pixelgun as we speak. But crossplay should have never happened. This isn't because Pixelgun on PC doesn't work, but because it works well. It works too fucking well. It works so well to the point that OG players are either forced to buy a PC just to compete at a reasonable level, or to quit the game altogether, because comparing PC players to mobile players is like comparing natural to enhanced athletes. I mean, that's ignoring console players, because that's like comparing them to the Paralympics. This sudden switch in player demographic has made a lot of OG players frustrated with the fact that their thousands of hours of practice is all going to shit due to the fact that they're now getting dogged by honestly previously average mobile players. Oh, well, why don't they just remove crossplay? And because then the Steam version of the game would completely die off, which would result in a massive loss for QuWack Games. I think. I don't know, I'm not their fucking CFO. But I just can't really imagine that dividing the player base any further would be good for the activity of this game. Especially when it's already on its deathbed. In fact, let's take this a step further. If I had a gun pointed to the center of my skull right now, I would put a wager that this game has less than 3 years left before it completely shuts down. I was gonna say it has 3 years left before it dies, but if we're being completely honest, its funeral was 3 years ago. What we're looking at right now is an abandoned, decaying dead body at a crime scene. But this raises the question, where did it all go wrong? And is there a way for the developers to fix the game and bring it back to its former glory? Well, yes and no. But in order to fix what's been broken, we have to go back into the past, many years ago. So, as some of you may know, the new update in Pixelgun 3D... No, go further, fuck you. Alright, so I think most of us could agree that the game peaked at around 2016 to 2018. You know, it might be a hot take, some might argue 2015 to 2017. But I don't really give a shit. Anyways, I think we can all agree that the game started to fall off after 2018. But why is that? In my opinion, this is due to a few reasons, some of which are very obvious and some of which I haven't really seen anyone else talk about. But these are, in my personal opinion, the main things that I've been frustrated with when I still actively played this game. First of all, and this one is pretty obvious, is the addition of gems. This is what I consider to be Pixelgun's very first massive L, which then down spirals the game into what it is now. Because at the time, gems could only be obtained through in-game purchases, meaning that you simply couldn't play the game anymore in order to get the best guns. You had to pay actual money for them. However, this in and of itself was not even a very big issue, because all you had to do was get the gun you wanted and get it to the max level and you were set. You maybe had to pay like $10 and that was it. This was no longer the case when the developers added what I consider to be the biggest fuck up in the history of this game, which brings us to the next point. Modules. Because when the developers added modules into the game, they became largely responsible for the damage output of every single one of your weapons. And these modules are very, very difficult to upgrade to the max level without spending money or getting a modded account. Like, I'm not even joking when I say that I have friends who have actively played this game for 10 years and still do not have access to level 10 modules. And the issue with that is that new players, or hell, even old players, are completely fucked if their opponent not only has better guns, but also has better modules on top of that. Bro, I swear to fucking god, I would do more damage throwing paper fucking airplanes into the Twin Towers than I do with this fucking... Okay, never mind. An easy fix would be to simply remove modules from the game entirely and to upscale the damage of every single weapon by 30%, which is already the amount of extra damage you would deal with level 10 modules anyways. This way, everyone is at an even playing field, which would make the game significantly more appealing to newer players, even if it is still gay to win. Pay to win. Fuck me. And another problem I have with this game is how they're trying to change the original art style into this disgusting low poly looking garbage. No, like genuinely, what the fuck are these avatars they've been pumping out, and who the fuck collects these things? Like, there's sociopaths, there's psychopaths, and then there's people that collect cubic game avatars unironically. And meanwhile, they have not updated the skin editor in years, and we're still forced to trade modded colors or import skins with third-party software. And on top of that, the skin editor is completely symmetrical, which means that you can't even separately change the arms or legs of your character. This not only limits creative freedom, but it also limits a mechanic that I would argue is largely responsible for the success of this game, because it makes the player feel unique and authentic. Expanding upon that, rather than a new art style, would be a step in the right direction. You know, nobody wants to spend money on low poly anime tits in a kid's game. Actually, some of you motherfuckers probably would, but that's besides the point. My last complaint about the game is the overhauled cleanse system, although, to be fair, I've never really been a big fan of grinding or cleanse, so I don't really know too much about it, but I do think that clans are of high importance in creating a sense of community and belonging in the game. My point being that creating a clan system should be about bringing players together, not about getting them to spend money on silver or to spend as many hours on the game as possible. A potential fix for this would be to either revert the clan system back to how it used to be, or to just create something better. Like back when clans would actively compete with each other through either the leaderboards or CVCs within the competitive community of the game. And while we're on the topic of community, I decided to ask some of you guys as to why you think the game has been going downhill. So I'll go ahead and put it on the screen right now, and if a developer sees this, I hope you could take at least one of our voices into consideration. Or not. I don't really care, to be honest. This game is cooked. Anyways, thanks for watching. Expect to see more content on other games going forth, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.